Okay, hello everyone. Welcome one, welcome all to all my friends, foes, minor acquaintances, complete strangers, and secret admirers, and everybody in between. Today is the first Nascondere mythos, comparative mythology, mythopoetic nonsense. Um, Today is a character study, and today we are going to be looking into probably the vilest and cruelest character in the campaign to this date. Um, I will say that I did write kind of a notes app, kind of a lot of his mythic connections and stuff like that, and just kind of keep me on track. So I have it in front of me, so if you see me read your eyes, that's why. I was trying to write a more formal script, but I realized there's a lot going on here. Um, and so I'll try to keep it contained. Now, there's no super lore implications or anything like that. No real spoilers. It's contained in that we're not branching out into the wider mythos entirely. So it's kind of a little dip into the taste of symbolism, and some of the themes that we'll begin to set up here we'll probably see in later character studies. So just keep them, maybe I don't want to say keep them in mind, but um, you'll see some of these same themes or same imagery and symbolism parallels return as we go on. So obviously, I know this is pretty cool stuff for my friends who are playing this game, but I think it's a really cool experiment into mythic storytelling and seeing if I can stem, I don't know, y'all stranger brains. So um, who we can talk about today, and I'll put up pictures like I did in the intro video because I think that really helps instead of just me talking like I've done in years past. So we're going to be talking about an Octavian Vesper today. He is a how would you say, a pariah heir. So to kind of explain of sorts, the Vesper household is a vampire household, a noble vampire household, and they are often in conflict at the beginning of the story with who is known as Sabrina Aminar. She is sort of the chief justice, crow queen of Nascondere, and is basically the authority figure of society distilled into one person. Obviously, she doesn't have total power, but she is, the authority figure. We can talk about her maybe in her own video, but basically, uh, Octavian Vesper is the heir to the Vesper house that hates her for basically some political machinations, to put it simply and shortly. That can be talked about in a different video, but just think of it as it's an ongoing power struggle between this house, noble house, and Sabrina Aminar and her faction, right? So, Octavian Vesper, um, we're not going to entirely dive into plot. We'll mention plot points because I think it is too much to explain the plot and then explain the symbolism. So we'll just kind of probably bridge up symbolism and or we'll talk about symbolism and then we'll abridge his story role in there as that goes on. So, because the symbolism basically it tells his entire story role, right? So, Octavian Vesper, what can we say about him? Well, his name obviously begets Roman kind of ancestry, right? Octavian is a pretty Roman name. I don't know about Vesper, but but so we can just draw symbolism straight from his name. So Octavian is the number 8, right? We can think of that. Vesper, Vespertine. We can think of basically the coming of night, nightfall, right? And so this becomes significant because if we think of Octavian, the number 8, and we think of Vesper, the nightfall, Vesper, we can also think of the morning star, right? Or not the morning star, sorry, the evening star, which is the same star, Venus, right? That we can see in the west whenever. So we think of the evening star imagery, which basically is a star that kind of heralds the night coming. Now, symbolically, this can show that if, for me, the night is sort of this dark time, the shadows encompass, the sun is obscured, and so this is the coming of darkness, the coming of evil, right? Walking afoot. So, if he's this herald coming down, then obviously he's just a herald of evil, right? So if we think of the number 8, we can think of, in astrology terms, the 8th house. The 8th house is significant because it's a symbol of sex and death. Now, these are themes that are entirely prevalent over Octavian's character. So, you know what? Shit it. Let's just go into his quick plot summary, okay? So, abridged, alright? Because this is just me talking abstract of symbols won't really help. So, Octavian, at the start of the campaign, the Vespers are trying to take down Sabrina. And they haven't. They have political schemes to take her out, and to not just take her out, but harm her. So Maddie's character in the campaign is Karina, and she's the daughter of Sabrina. So a little, And so the Vespers not only just want to harm, but they want to basically destroy her in her psyche and well-being. Right? They want to torture her in a way. And so how do you do that? You go after one of their kids. So they want to assassinate Karina's character at the beginning of the game, but Octavian isn't supposed to be the one to do it. Too much plausible deniability, right? So he takes it upon himself to do it. So think of this as he's advancing. He's already taking things that he's not supposed to. Themes that'll come up later. He goes to try to assassinate Karina, fails, exposes the Vesper plot, and he gets away and escapes. But basically, they have to damage control, right? They disinherit him. He becomes a disinherited heir, and his brother Valerian becomes the heir. His brother Valerian has a budding romance with Karina, and that pisses him off. When Valerian learns his family's schemes, he turns them all in, right? This is after Sabrina has already fell, though, due to other political machinations. But basically, we have a character who's on a downward spiral arc. He's been disinherited. He hates this family. He hates them even more, and his brother now, too, because his brother has joined the enemy. And basically, he's on a downward spiral of death, destruction, to get vengeance, right? And basically, he threatens them with all sorts of tools to extort. And by the end, after they kill him and defeat him in battle, he curses Karina to never feel love for her brother. So that's his plot in a nutshell. So let's talk about the symbolism, and this will help color in all the details. So we left off at the 8th house, which was sex and death, right? And in those, we can think of the 8th house is often the planet that is dominant is Pluto, Hades, right? And the constellation is Scorpio. When we think of Scorpio, poison. We think of scorpions, poisonous stings, and things of that nature. Scorpions are a symbol that will recur later, so we're not going to go full into that. But Pluto, we think of Hades, and to further kind of illustrate, maybe whenever Octavian was in his assassination attempt with Karina, and whenever they fight him later, he uses his girlfriend, Roxy Graves, as sort of like the medium of which to fight the player characters with, sort of as to soften them up for him eventually, right? And so this, I say his girlfriend because it becomes questionable, if it's a consensual relationship. Now, this harkens to sex, death, things of that nature. He's a very violent character. He's a very evil character, full of malice and hate in his heart. And we think of Hades, right? Like I said earlier, Pluto is the dominant planet of the eighth house. Hades abducts Persephone, right, to the underworld, takes her to the underworld, in sort of a kind of rapish kind of tone, to be honest. And so that theme obviously shows with Octavian and Roxy, right? The abduction. If we also think of it taking down to the underworld, where the player characters fought Octavian was in a literal underworld of sorts. It's kind of furnace, this mock furnace, down through underground tunnels into a industrial facility furnace. We'll return to furnace imagery later. So to backpedal a little bit, I'm going really fast because I'm realizing there's so much ground to cover, and I don't want this to go on for 40 minutes. So I want to return real quick to the evening star, which we talked about earlier, right? The star that heralds the night. Darkness has come. So the evening star is Venus in the real world. And Venus in Babylonian times. Now, I'm mentioning that specifically. We're not going to go into all of Venus and evening star, morning star symbolism. It's just too much to cover. I'm covering what's relevant to everything going forward, too, So, think of in Babylonian times that Venus was often synonymous with the goddess Ishtar or Inanna, who was a war / love / kind of fertility goddess, right, in Babylonian times. Do we not see those same themes in the eighth house of astrology? Sex, death, war, and love, fertility. These are all things that return recurrent symbolism: fertility, death, life and destruction, love and hatred. These are themes that are all over the Nascondere mythos, all over a lot of my campaign stuff, to be honest, too. But let's not get all into that. But so yeah, that's that. Now, when we think of this figure who has a proclivity for sexual violence, who has the taking things which do not belong to him implications, we think of him as this herald of darkness, this herald of evil, who wants revenge on his fallen house. Now, here's a fun little tidbit. Does not Valerian and Karina's romance star-crossed lovers, right? Two different houses that hate each other. This reminds us of Romeo and Juliet, right? Now, if Octavian is like Romeo and Karina is like Juliet, then we can also think of Romeo, Rome, or Romulus and Remus, right? Two brothers who fight for control over the kingdom. So we have Rome, or Valerian, and Romulus and Remus. These are two brothers who, like I said, fight for control over the kingdom. We see this in the inheritance conflict of both Octavian and Valerian are fighting for literal control of their house by the end of it, right? The disinherited heir versus the propped up heir. So that's something of interest, I thought, as well. A cool, interesting kind of note. Inheritances actually is a key theme actually in the eighth house of astrology. So that kind of puts a nice little bow tie back to that thing earlier, right? So, like I said, we're seeing this guy as a pretty evil and dark, malign figure. He's not very nice. He's not very kind. Now, he's sort of this kind of, well, y'all seen the image, but he's sort of this kind of mob gangsterish kind of person. But he really ups the tone in season two. Season two is obviously when winter comes, the darkness, the night, right? Sabrina has fallen. The moon, right? Magister Moon is in control of the system, or of politics. The moon, night, right? These are themes that we already talked about, and so we think of him as evil, maybe devilish, one could say, or even demonic. And Octavian really goes to play that up in season two. He is bestowed a crown of bull slash demonic imagery, right? A bull crown, bull headed, bull horns. And he full in becomes this demonic personage, right? His downward spiral has not just begun, but he's in his lowest depths. Um, so, obviously, this bull imagery isn't random. It has some real symbolic meaning here. And so some of this symbolic meaning is intentional as part of my campaign design, obviously, but some of it is entirely, how would you say, uh, the magic of D&D, right? It's not just planned out, but it just arises from actions that players take. So a lot of the stuff previously was, say, coincidence. Now this becomes more intentional design. He is bestowed a brazen bull crown. I say brazen. He is bestowed a bull crown because he is dark and evil, like a demon, right? But we see, if we go into bull mythos or mythology, a bull is often um, basically it reinforces a lot of the themes we talked about earlier. What am I talking about here? So, when we think of a bull demon, this obviously evokes like Moloch or Baal. Um, but we also think of the Minotaur of Crete, right? And when we think of that, we think the labyrinth. The labyrinth the players traverse down to get to his boss fight. Um, when we think of the Minotaur of Crete, we think of Minos, who is the son of Zeus and Europa, who is of questionable consensual nature. Zeus abducts and does that to Europa as a bull, similarly to the Hades Persephone line that we talked about earlier. Right? There's a lot of that in Greek mythology, in Greek and Roman mythology, to be honest. So more sexual violence undertones about his character and symbolism here, right? With the bull head, just enforces that imagery. So we do think, I said brazen bull earlier, like Moloch, the furnace, right? This was a thing in ancient times. The Canaanites and whatnot would sacrifice people to a brazen bull and feed it inside a bowl. They would light it on fire and it would kill someone in a horrendous manner. Note earlier when we descended down to the underworld into the labyrinth, we entered a furnace into this kind of metallic factory where we fought him. So this evokes the brazen bull, right? The fernery. So obviously we also think the devouring brother, Romulus and Remus, right? And so he wants to, instead of devouring maybe a child, he wants to devour his brother. So brazen often, we don't just think of brass and metal. We also think of he's bold, brash, acts without shame, right? And notably, Octavian as a character was zero shame. He acts boldly without family orders to try to kill Karina. He tries to take things which he doesn't want. So, yeah. I mean, I know that wasn't very organized, but this is pretty much the distillment of Octavian Vesper, his character, and basically his whole goals is to threaten and enforce sexual violence. He's basically probably one of the most evil characters in the whole setting. So, um, you know, I feel like I just kind of talked and then boom, we're like off a cliff, all of a sudden, where do we go from here? Because I pretty much covered everything. But, and I know that was really jumbled, but, images will help you all along, tie the bow together. But I do want to talk about perhaps his downfall, right? So when Karina, Philo, and Valerian, the three, um, go to combat Octavian in his furnace, in his brazen bull furnace, these three, the party, they defeat him, right? And he realizes he's going to lose, and right before they kill him, he tries to basically kill, as a last act, his brother Octavian, right? In a if I can't have him, you can't either kind of motion. More ownership, right? More ownership vibes. And because if I can't kill him, then you're not going to have him as a lover or whatnot. And so when he's pocketed away to, say, like some little dimension thing in the fight, when he is taken away from Octavian's control, he's a character who's lost all control. He's a character centered on control, and now he's lost it all. He's lost everything, right? He's down at the very bottom, and he kind of gives up in a way. It kind of unsettles the players because they try to fight and want to kill him, but he's almost dejected, as if the one thing, that he maybe could have control in his life over. He's a character who basically enforces control because he has no control in his life. Disinherited, right? And all this other stuff. So that's interesting. There's also undertones of generational trauma here. I mean, we do think, or it is known, that Valerian fears his father because of family violence. Suffice to say, the older brother probably was also abused, or so. We see he's not just this evil figure; he's a tragic figure in that right. Not saying he's justified, because he's awful and just one of the worst characters there is, but he is a tragic figure in that right, because he's basically generational trauma distilled. Generational generations obviously becoming a theme across the setting of multiple other characters, familial relations, right? So in this last battle, where he is robbed of his final act of control, where he cannot kill his brother, he is robbed of that right. He kind of gives up on life. However, with one last bit of control, it is in total spite and malice, right? Again, that if I can't have him, you can't either. Because he is, it is taken from him, and because he is almost demeaned, I think, by the players after this manner, he imparts sort of this killing curse upon Karina, which I call was love is not enough. Basically, it kills all the love in her heart for Valerian, allegedly. And this last bit of curse ties back to all the themes we were talking about earlier: war, death, love. It is the death of love, right? Violence against love. It is the killing of it. He kills her love. And not only that, but the line he says, and I don't have the exact quote up, I should have figured it out, but it says something of like, I will always be with you. Has some, that he'll feel her in his heart, because it's the hole, right? The hole in her heart, the dark spot. It has some kind of undertones of possession, as well as sexual violence and of things like that. If you will feel me forevermore in your heart, because I've done something, I've wronged you in a way. So it is his last act of psychological, and I think it is a pretty fitting last arc for him. That's crazy because honestly, I did not think he would do something of that nature. But I think that's awesome. Now, one last thing I'll talk about, because I just thought of this on the spot because I think this is really cool. So, I told the players that one condition of which Karina's love will return, that is for sure. They can find a way in game to do so, but there's a for sure way. Every game I draw a tarot card before the game. Now, I said if I ever draw the Lovers, then her love will return. And so there's the Lovers card, right? We see these two beautiful characters in the Garden of Eden. This is imagery that will return, right? But we see two lover figures. Obviously, we think Valerian and we think Karina. Now, notably, that's the card I said that I need to pull. Weren't we just talking about Octavian as a devilish, demonic figure, right? Notably, in the card the Devil, we see the same two lovers chained, right? As you see, these are mirror images of the colors. So he has chained them in a way, bound and controlled their love, the devil and the lovers. So just some interesting tarot as well into this conflict. But that is pretty much Octavian Vesper in a nutshell. He is, like I said, pretty much the most evil and vile character that I say well, because there's another pretty bad one in this campaign we can talk about later. But I think Octavian maybe takes the cake, as it's just tragic kind of evil figure here. So, that is the brainstem. I know that was a free flow of information. You really got to see my brain on full display go whoosh, from dot to dot to dot to dot to dot, strings all over the place. So, I hope you enjoyed this. Hopefully in the future videos, maybe I won't be so strung along and from here to there to everywhere. Tell me what you think. Do you see these connections? What kind of themes do you think this is building? And yeah, please feel free to comment, ask me about other characters and the like. This is to my players, but to the randoms who watch my videos sometimes, if you're still here, thank you, I guess, but good luck, because there's a lot going on here. Good luck to understanding all this. But I hope this really, helps, like I said, stem your mythological brain into creating more. Obviously, we'll be talking a lot more and have a lot more about the setting, as well as characters and people here. This is just so that we can have a more comprehensive sort of discussion about the campaign, rather than, like I said, one 80-minute long video. We can just have these little bite-sized pieces. So hopefully you won't tune out, and you will not mistake this small fruit as the only prize. There's a much bigger garden that awaits. So, more to come. And yeah, so let me engagement farm real quick. So if you like the video, leave a like. If you want, please comment on the video. Please say something funny to make me laugh. And subscribe if you already haven't. If you want to follow me on, I don't even know what my social media stuff is on my YouTube, but if you want to, they're probably there. And yeah, I will see y'all in the next video, which I don't know who we'll talk about next. Like I said, I'm trying not to spoil everything. We could maybe talk about Sabrina, who we talked about earlier, right? Sabrina Aminar. She's a pretty self-contained character in this story, so she could be probably a pretty good character to discuss. So, until then, I'll see y'all around. So, peace.